Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Peter here. Today's video is covering another 4 oils by Ensar Oud. As an update to the previous videos, I've sampled quite a few now and I have decided to go with 2 in particular for my own blends for what I want to create perfume with. One is Oud YUSUF, which I have 15 grams here. It's a beautiful honey golden colour. This one is has floral nuances, it's soft, it's slightly sweet, it's very, very pretty. And the second variety I went for, that one is, by the way, an organically farmed oud from Thailand. The next one is XIANG LIOU, which is an Indonesian wild oud aged from 2006, and this is from Papua, which is like a region of Papua New Guinea. And this is really complex and dark, and it smells like, to me, it reminds me of dry desert sands. It has kind of an earthy darkness to it and reminds me of hot sand in the desert. It's fantastic, and there's incensey like nuances there as well. Very complex, but they're both beautiful, but those are the 2 that I personally went for. But I will say, actually, it's incredibly hard to pick, and if I had the money, I would buy loads of them. Like, some of them are amazing. It's so hard to control yourself, actually, once you start smelling how different all these different oud oils are and how unique they are. And they're just, when I was away offshore, I wasn't really thinking about perfumes, I was thinking about oud. That's kind of the state that it puts your brain into. They're just amazing. Anyway, if I was a millionaire, I'd buy loads of them. They are expensive though. So we'll review the next 4, and then after this 4 I have just 4 more left, and yeah, so we'll get into it. So the first one here is called Assamugo Senkoh. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I'll put the name up on the screen. It's kind of a hard name to pronounce. But this is from the Chinese Assam border, and wow, okay. So the name Senkoh is given to this because it has to, the idea for the naming is that to be a Senkoh named fragrance or oud oil, it has to smell like the pure resin from the wood. It can't smell of anything else. It has to smell like the pure, true smell of the resin. And another factor is that it's got to be so good that you want to smell it over and over again. It has to have that kind of wow factor, and if those 2 elements aren't present with the oud oil, then it can't have the name Senkoh. But this is a very high grade, high quality oil, but wow, this one has ever so slight barnyard touches, like nuances. It's not like totally skanky, but there's just an edge to it that's like, ooh, a little bit daring without being like too crazy. It has an element of that, but it's subtle. It's not too much for me personally, because I'm quite sensitive to skanky kind of ouds. This isn't like, whoa, it's just a little bit of that, which kind of makes it interesting. There's an earthiness and a dry dustiness to this as well, but there's also kind of subtly spiced nuance and something that reminds me of almost like a suede leather. Like, it has this smooth suede kind of feeling to it, slightly spiced, slightly animalic in the kind of the goat's hair kind of scent. Just, I can't explain how complex this is, but it's beautiful, and for some people might be a little bit challenging with that kind of animalic touch to the oil, but it's also incredibly smooth at the same time. It has a warmth and a luxuriousness to this one that just makes you want to smell it again and again. It's quite captivating, and there's so many nuances to it. It's not a simple kind of scent to describe. It's quite complex, challenging, but not too daring in a way that's unwearable. Like, you can wear that as just a perfume in itself, but there is an animalic touch. There is a smoothness that's like suede. It's slightly spiced. It's warm. It's slightly dusty. It's just resinous and woody, and as it kind of dries down, it mellows out and becomes more the pure kind of what you think of as agar, that kind of smooth, mellow kind of wood. And in terms of performance for this particular one, just a tiny little dab on my hand lasted 6 hours, so it's pretty good. To give you an indication of like sizing, this bottle here is 3 grams, so you can kind of judge there on the pricing how much you're going to get, you know, for 3 grams. It is quite a lot of oil there actually. And then this big jar here is 15 grams, but you can see how wide this jar is. It's not a small jar. To just give you an accurate kind of idea of sizing there. So the next one is called Hainan, and this is from 2005. So this one is aged for 13 years now. And this one is actually a rare Chinese oud where I believe the tree is actually extinct. It doesn't exist anymore. From reading the blog post on the website. So this one's like officially extinct, so it's super rare. Obviously what's left is just what's left, and then when it's gone, I guess. So when I smell this one is slightly medicinal in the opening. It has kind of a slight sharpness, slightly medicinal. So this one gets compared by other people to ambergris, musk and orange peel. And I kind of completely get what they mean. You do kind of get like a salty ambergris, you get kind of like an almost a bitter sour orange peel. So it's interesting how these natural nuances occur in oud. It's quite strange. As this one dried down on my skin, it got less medicinal and less sharp, and it got way more mellow and smooth. It became a little bit sweeter, but also it had an earthiness came out, more like a dry kind of earthiness started to come out more as it dried down. And the sweetness kind of almost had nuances of something like tobacco and hay combined. It has this kind of dryness that smells a bit like hay. The sweetness is a little bit like tobacco, and there's kind of a general slight earthiness to it. This one again is really complex and kind of hard to describe, but it's definitely interesting, and for like an oud connoisseur, I think this is one that you would dig your teeth into. It's got some interesting kind of complex nuances to this one. And in terms of longevity for this one, it was 8 hours on my skin with just a small dab. This one actually gets compared to the smell of kinam, and kinam is like one of the kind of the most rarest, precious kind of grades of oud that has a really high oil content, and it's very, very rare and very expensive. And the next one we're going to talk about is Jing Shen LIOU. So this one has been aged for 4 years. This is one of the more stunning ones, and one that if I could afford I would buy this one as well. It's really, really good. So this one is created using 100% pure organic XIANG, which again is like a really high grade, high quality variety. So XIANG is like a denser kind of resin that really permeates deeper into the wood. So it's really high end, high grade quality. So with this one, this smells more pure. I don't get the crazy natural nuances of it smelling, you know, of this and that. This smells like more simplified but beautiful and pure. It smells slightly sweet and more like you can imagine just the resin part of the wood to smell like. This smells almost ambery but woody at the same time. You get the agar wood kind of smell of the wood, but it's resinous and slightly sweet and warm and soft and just super smooth and so ridiculously pleasant. This one I would say is more mass appealing. Like for even a non-oud lover, if you smelled that, you would go, wow, that smells really good. This has like just a beautiful pleasing smell that really I can't imagine anyone disliking this one. It's so smooth. As this one dried down on my skin, it got kind of even more resinous and reminded me almost of like myrrh and natural incense. Like natural incense built up of, you know, myrrh and benzoin and these kind of resins. It's super resinous and smooth and sweet, but really beautiful. This is one of my favourite ones I tested. And like I say, I have a hard job of picking what to buy in bigger quantity because I can only afford you know, a couple of them. I would say if you want a purer kind of smell without these complicated nuances, and you just want to smell more of like the agave oil and the pure kind of wood, then I think this is a good choice. It's super mellow and just smells really beautiful. And in terms of longevity for this particular one, a tiny little dab on my hand lasted me 7 hours, so this is a good performer as well. So the next one is called Midori Ki or Kui or Kai. Midori Ki Q Kai. I'm not sure how you pronounce QI. Midori QI. And this one is different again, and my god, I find these really hard to describe. So this one is slightly sweet, and it has kind of slightly floral nuances. It smells a little bit floral, and actually reminds me a little bit of white floral, like it could have hints of jasmine in there or something like that. And this one again is resinous and smooth, and you know, agar wood kind of smell. The smell of the wood and kind of this resinous sweet smell, but this is like infused with a floral like element nuance to it that makes it smell a little bit lighter and a little bit more, I don't want to say feminine, but I mean it has almost like a femininity to it in a natural way, just because it has this kind of sweet floral element to it. But there's absolutely no funk, no dirtiness, no nothing with this. It's super likable and almost musky. I think a good way to describe this is maybe slightly sweet and resinous, but in a musky kind. It smells slightly musky, sweet, and slightly floral. But I noticed as this one dried down, it changed and actually became earthy in the dry down, which was like a bit of a twist, because you don't get any sign of that in the opening, but as it develops and it dries down, you get this earthiness coming through, which is really nice. I kind of really like that nuance in oud, is this earthiness and like dust and sand. You kind of get that kind of vibe of the smell of just before a thunderstorm, when you get that dusty kind of air smell. But if you want a more floral, like natural florally kind of oud, then this would be a good choice, because it has more of that kind of subtle sweet floral nuance to it. So each one of these are quite different, and I really think there is an oud for everybody. I mean, even if oud isn't your taste, I'm sure you would find one that you like. In terms of performance for this one again lasted around 7 hours on my skin. So I would say the longevity in general for these oud oils seems to be in the region between kind of 6 and 8 hours usually for all of them. They all perform really well. Just, I mean, literally, I'm talking a dab. You really don't need much. One thing I noticed is with these little dabbers, you can accidentally touch the bridge of your nose there when you're smelling. And if you do that, you smell oud for hours wherever you go. You can walk outside and you're just smelling oud everywhere. So that's quite good actually. If you want a trick, just put a tiny dab there and you'll smell it all day. I have such an appreciation of oud now that I never realised how amazing it is and how unique they all are. I just didn't realise the array of possibilities that are available. I mean, literally, I have so many samples and every one of them is different. It's just incredible. I really do recommend, if you can afford just these tiny small samples, it really is worth like just experiencing it, even if you only get 2 or 3 of them. I mean, I know it's hard to choose between them, like I have a hard job choosing as well, but it really is quite an experience to smell real quality oud and what it's capable of, and the differences that it can have, and it just really opens your eyes, and it gets kind of addicting. I find myself just, rather than smelling my perfumes, because you know, normally I would just come to my bookcase and smell a perfume, and for the last kind of month I've not been doing that. I've been going to my oud samples and just smelling oud instead. I'm kind of neglecting my perfume a bit. It's fascinating, and I do recommend, you know, testing some out. But yeah, fantastic. I will do a review of the next 4, but I also, you know, I wanted to mention that these are the ones that I personally went for. XIANG, LIOU, LING, and Oud YUSUF. One organically, you know, like ethically, organically farmed, and one wild oud. This, I think, is aged for 13 years now. This one is aged as well, but not as long. The sad thing about Oud YUSUF is the farm no longer exists anymore. The farmers sold all the trees and they're all been cut down, so that doesn't exist anymore, which is kind of sad. But Oud YUSUF is beautiful, and again, more accessible. That has like the natural fruity floral nuances to that one. It's very likable. So if you don't want a daring kind of complex oud and you want something pretty, you know, Oud YUSUF is a good one. XIANG LIOU LING is a little bit more slightly daring and complex and really interesting character, like the dry dusty desert sand and the soily kind of dark tones to it and incensey kind of vibes, but all of them super unique, very different. That's it. I've talked long enough. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you again in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.